The laughter stopped mid-beat when a voice from the third row cut through the studio like lightning. Jimmy Fallon froze, his signature smile faltering as he turned toward the sound. Lady Gaga, who had been mid-joke about her latest film, went completely silent. The Roots stopped playing. 300 audience members held their breath. Because what they just heard wasn't a typical fan shout or request for a selfie. It was a cry for help, raw and desperate, from someone who had nothing left to lose. It was Tuesday night at 30 Rock, and the Tonight Show was in full swing. Lady Gaga had arrived in a stunning black sequined dress, her energy infectious as always. She and Jimmy had been trading stories about her new movie, cracking jokes about method acting, and the audience was eating it up. The Roots provided their signature musical punctuation to every punchline. Everything was going exactly as planned. But in the third row, 18-year-old Alex Martinez sat with hands trembling, clutching a crumpled piece of paper. They had won their seat through a social media contest, never expecting to actually be selected. For weeks, Alex had debated whether to even attend. The rejection from their family still felt fresh, the words still echoing, "We don't have a gay child anymore." The paper in their hands contained a letter they'd written, but never intended to read aloud. Jimmy was setting up Lady Gaga for another story when it happened. "So tell us about," he began, but was cut off by a voice that seemed to come from the deepest place of pain. "Lady Gaga," Alex called out, standing up suddenly. "I need to tell you something." The studio lighting operator instinctively followed the voice, casting a spotlight on Alex. Security started moving, but Jimmy immediately raised his hand to stop them. Something in Alex's tone, not aggressive, not demanding, but desperately vulnerable, made everyone pause. Lady Gaga turned completely toward Alex, her performer's instincts kicking in, but her expression shifting from entertainer to human being in an instant. "What is it, honey?" she called back, her voice gentle but carrying across the silent studio. Alex's voice cracked as they spoke, but the words came pouring out anyway. "6 months ago, my family told me I was no longer their child because I'm transgender. I've been living in my car, and your music is the only thing keeping me alive." The studio fell into a silence so complete that the hum of the air conditioning seemed deafening. Jimmy's mouth fell open slightly. Lady Gaga's eyes immediately filled with tears. The Roots members looked at each other with expressions of shock and empathy. Behind the cameras, producers were frantically whispering into their headsets, unsure of protocol. But Jimmy Fallon had been doing television long enough to know when something bigger than entertainment was happening. He looked at his production team and made a decision that would define this moment. "Stop the music," Jimmy said, his voice carrying across the studio. "Cut the countdown clock. We're going off script." Lady Gaga didn't wait for permission. She stood up from her chair, walked around Jimmy's desk, and headed straight into the audience. Jimmy followed immediately behind her, abandoning his hosting duties entirely. Alex watched them approach, tears streaming down their face, still clutching that letter. When Lady Gaga reached their row, she didn't hesitate. She sat down right in the audience seat, next to Alex, not caring about her expensive dress, or the cameras, or the hundreds of people watching. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Lady Gaga asked softly, taking Alex's hand in hers. "Alex," they whispered, barely audible even with the studio microphones picking up every word. "Alex," Lady Gaga repeated, her voice full of warmth. "I want you to know something right now. You are loved, you are seen, and you are not alone." Jimmy, who had positioned himself standing beside them, found his own voice thick with emotion. "Alex, can you tell us what happened?" Alex looked down at the letter in their shaking hands. "I came out to my parents as transgender 6 months ago. They said I was confused, that I was going through a phase. When I insisted it was who I really am, they told me to leave and never come back." The audience was completely silent, many visibly crying. The Roots drummer, Questlove, wiped his eyes behind his kit. I've been sleeping in my car in different parking lots, Alex continued, their voice growing stronger. I work at a coffee shop, but it's not enough for an apartment. And some nights, when it gets really dark, when I feel like nobody cares if I exist, I play Born This Way and remember that somebody out there gets it. Lady Gaga's composure broke completely. She wrapped Alex in a hug right there in the audience seats, not caring about cameras or angles or how it looked. She just held them while they cried. Baby, she whispered, loud enough for the microphones to catch. You were born exactly as you were meant to be, and anybody who can't see that is missing out on knowing an incredibly brave person. Jimmy knelt down beside them both. Alex, I have to ask you something, and I want you to be honest. Are you safe? Do you have somewhere to go tonight? Alex shook their head. The car. But it's okay. I'm used to it. No, Lady Gaga said firmly, still holding Alex. That's not okay. That's not okay at all. She turned to face Jimmy, then looked directly into the main camera. You know what? We're going to fix this right now, right here. Lady Gaga stood up, still holding Alex's hand, and faced the studio audience. Her voice carried the same power it did when she performed, but this time it was pure, unfiltered truth. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I call my chosen family, she said, gesturing to the entire studio. Because sometimes the family you're born into doesn't understand you. Sometimes they can't see past their own fears to love you completely. But that doesn't mean you're unlovable. It means you get to build a family of people who see you for exactly who you are. She squeezed Alex's hand tighter. Alex, I want you to know something. You're not homeless anymore. You're not alone anymore. You're part of my chosen family now, and we take care of each other. The audience erupted in applause, but Lady Gaga wasn't finished. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. I'm going to give you my personal assistant's number, she said, typing something quickly. Tomorrow morning, you're going to call her, and we're going to find you a safe place to live. We're going to help you get on your feet, and we're going to make sure you never have to sleep in a car again. Jimmy watched this unfold with tears in his own eyes. Gaga, can I add something? She nodded, and Jimmy turned to Alex. My show, my platform, my voice. I want to use it to make sure your story helps other people. Alex, would you be willing to come back on the show in a few weeks and update us? Not because you're a charity case, but because you're an inspiration. Alex nodded, overwhelmed. Yes, but why? Why are you helping me? Lady Gaga's answer came without hesitation. Because I was you once. Maybe not exactly your situation, but I know what it feels like to be different in a world that doesn't always celebrate different. I know what it feels like to need just one person to see you and say you matter. She paused, looking around the studio. And because this is what we do, we show up for each other. Jimmy stood up and addressed the studio. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do something we've never done on this show. We're going to turn this into a moment where love wins. He turned back to Alex. Stand up for a second. Alex stood, still holding Lady Gaga's hand. Jimmy looked at the audience. I want everyone in this studio to stand up. I want Alex to see what chosen family looks like. The entire audience rose to their feet. Not the typical prompted standing ovation, but a spontaneous show of support and love. People were crying openly, holding their hands to their hearts. Lady Gaga began to sing, softly at first, a cappella. I'm beautiful in my way, 'cause God makes no mistakes. The audience began to join in, creating an impromptu choir of 300 voices. I'm on the right track, baby, I was born this way. Alex sobbed as hundreds of strangers sang the song that had kept them alive, singing it directly to them, for them, with them. When the song ended, the studio fell into that special kind of silence that follows something sacred. Lady Gaga hugged Alex one more time, then did something unexpected. She removed the necklace she was wearing, a simple but elegant piece with a small rainbow pendant. This was given to me by a fan in 2011, she said, fastening it around Alex's neck. She told me it represented hope. I want you to have it now, because you represent hope to me. Hope that love always finds a way to show up. Jimmy wiped his eyes and looked into the camera. We're going to end tonight's show right here. Not with jokes or games or musical performances. We're ending with the reminder that everybody deserves to be loved exactly as they are. The credits rolled over the image of Lady Gaga, Jimmy, and Alex standing together in that audience, surrounded by 300 people who had just witnessed something extraordinary. 6 months later, Alex returned to The Tonight Show. This time, they sat in the guest chair, well-dressed and beaming, having just started college on a scholarship that Lady Gaga had quietly arranged. They spoke about their work with LGBTQ+ youth experiencing homelessness. The most powerful moment came when Alex looked directly into the camera and said, "If you're watching this and you're scared, if you're alone, if your family doesn't understand, you have a chosen family waiting for you. You just have to be brave enough to find them." The episode became the most watched Tonight Show episode in the show's history. Not because of celebrity drama or viral moments, but because people recognized authentic human connection when they saw it. Because sometimes, late-night television becomes something more important than entertainment. Sometimes it becomes a reminder that love, real love, shows up in the most unexpected places.